In the forgotten recesses of our own world, there are places time has left behind. Places where old magic still hangs in the air like a morning haze, where myth and reality run into something much more enigmatic. Shadow of the Colossus draws us into such a world caught between dream and nightmare, where a young man's intense passion is the goad that sets events in motion that will resonate through centuries. The world prior, ancient magic and forbidden lands. Before our tale begins, before there was ever wonder in that decayed bridge, the forbidden lands contain secrets older than memory itself. This vast, empty peninsula lies across varied landscape, a geographical enigma of contrasts. Green grasslands suddenly yield to bone-dry deserts. Serene lakes lie in the lee of towering cliffs. Weathered monuments, worn by many seasons, stand mute witness to a vanished civilization that once flourished here. The peninsula itself lies cut off from the rest of the world by a massive natural barrier. To the north, a chain of mountains ascends like a wall, their tops shrouded in eternal cloud. To the south and east, the endless sea stretches over the horizon, its water dark and menacing. The only portal is a solitary bridge, a work of art that crosses an impossible span. This bridge ends at the center of the Forbidden Lands, at a building called the Shrine of Worship. The Shrine of Worship towers over the center of these lands like a petrified stone giant in prayer. Its design implies a culture of great refinement, one that had grasped the sacred and the sublime. There are great pillars holding vaulted ceilings that appear to go on forever. Light streams in through openings far above, casting pillars of light into the ever-present darkness of the interior. At the center of the central hall is an altar, plain but deep in its make. Along the walls, 16 stone idols stand motionless guard, each distinctive, each containing a hideous secret. These idols are not additions for religious iconography or mere decorations, they are cells. Beneath every statue is a shard of something ancient and mighty, a being which once inspired terror and respect in equal proportions. This being's name is Dorman, though whether Dorman is divine, demonic, or something darker is one of the Forbidden Land's greatest enigmas. History records little of the imprisonment of Dorman, only through whispers and scraps. It is from Lord Emin, a shaman whose lore about these events indicates his predecessors had a strong role to play in the sealing. The Emin guards of this legend tell that Dorman was a creature of unimaginable power, able to control souls and even turn back death itself. Whether Dorman had these powers by divine strength, ancient magic, or some other path is uncertain, but the meaning was so great that it caused reverence and terror. Somewhere along the lost ages of time, Dorman was considered too much of a threat to be left at large. Whether this was because of evil in Dorman's heart or fear of power beyond comprehension, we can no longer be sure. All we know is that a ritual was enacted, one that took gigantic magical force. Dorman's being was rent asunder, broken into 16 pieces. Each piece was then jailed inside a gigantic guardian, beast that would be referred to as the Colossi. The Colossi themselves are mysteries clad in stone and fur. They are neither fully alive nor entirely constructed, existing in a liminal state between the organic and the architectural. Their bodies merge flesh with earth, bone with stone, creating beings that seem to be extensions of the land itself. Whether they possess consciousness, whether they truly live in any meaningful sense, or whether they are elaborate magical constructs animated by Dorman's fragments, these questions the game never definitively answers. What we can see is that they bleed, that they respond to pain, that they fight back, implying at least some degree of awareness or instinct. Some are familiar creatures, bulls, birds, serpents. Others have forms which resist easy categorization, their forms implying nightmares or dreams granted concrete existence. These 16 guardians were then distributed throughout the Forbidden Lands, each put in one particular place that would be both lair and prison. They live in a form of suspended animation, neither really living nor dead, nourished by the shards of Dorman's power that reside in them. As long as they last, Dorman is trapped. The idols in the Shrine of Adoration are a secondary seal, their presence hardening the magical constraints that hold the entity captive. This civilization knew they were messing with forces that would reshape reality. The Shrine of Worship was constructed not only as a prison, but as a monument to this realization, a reminder in stone of the cost of pride and the risks of power unbalanced. It eventually declined as a civilization. Whether they were killed, dispersed, or simply died out naturally is unknown. The game does not provide any definitive information about their destiny. What remains is this immense, vacant landscape, inhabited only by the silent giants and the creatures that have claimed the ruins as their own. The name Forbidden Lands is no poetry. This land was specifically cut off from the world, considered too perilous for men to settle. The bridge that carries it to the mainland is both portal and warning. Pass through this door, the architecture appears to be saying, and you shed the rules that govern ordinary life. Here there are other rules. Here the past retains authority. And it is into this realm, on an omens-filled night of clouds, that a young man named Wander will ride, carrying a weight that will shatter the seals and loose powers that have slept for ages beyond number. Wander's story starts in love, loss, and desperate hope. The game begins with a picture that will set everything else that happens in motion. A solitary bird flying under storm-dark skies, tracking two figures as they walk a perilous mountain trail. The smaller of the two is a young man, likely around his early 20s, with shoulder-length reddish-brown hair tied back by a blue headband. His name is Wander, though we shall discover very little else of him during our travels. Wander does not look like a man who is used to being a warrior. His attire is plain, a short-sleeved brown tunic under a cloaked patterned tunic, the pattern of which bears a symbol we shall find all too familiar. His arms are bound in bandages and held in place by blue wrist guards. He is wearing utilitarian shorts and sandals with shin protectors, the clothing of one who prioritizes mobility over safety. Suspended at his belt is a sword in its sheath, but already from these initial appearances, there is a sense of unfamiliarity in the way he wears it. The bigger figure is Wander's horse, a mare named Agro. She is dark-colored, with a white spot between her eyes, a whirl that gleams in what little light filters through the clustering clouds. Agro is no ordinary horse. The horse and rider bond is evident from the very start in their motion. The way Wander settles into her turns, how she reacts to the softest pressure of his knees. They have spent years together, these two, and that bond will be instrumental in all that comes after. But it is not Wander's stance or Agro's agility that most intensely catches our notice. It is what Agro holds, a bundle wrapped in a shroud of white, tied tightly across the back of the horse. The form is that of a man, though no sign of movement emanates from within the wrapping. This is valuable freight, treated with a delicacy that bespeaks deep importance. Wander and Agro's route is risky, zigzagging through mountain canyons where one misstep would result in a drop of several hundred feet. The terrain itself appears unfriendly, as if nature itself is attempting to block their way. But Wander continues on with grim determination, staring at something in the distance that only he can perceive. At last the trail opens onto a view that takes one's breath away. Before them lies a gigantic bridge, a work of architecture impossible, spanning a distance no bridge ever should be able to span. It is ancient beyond all measure, its stones weathered by immemorial seasons, but somehow it still stands. This bridge is the sole link between the world Wander is familiar with and forbidden lands beyond. There is no reluctance in Wander's movement as he leads Agro onto the bridge, no hesitation to second-guess himself, no hesitation of doubt. Whatever prompts him to be here, whatever necessity impels him on, it is more powerful than fear or sense. The bridge lies out before them, impossible in length, vanishing into mist and horizon. As they walk over it, the world they grew up with slips away behind them and the lands of the forbidden start to unfold. The landscape here is at once noticeable. Grasslands undulate in rolling waves under a sky that somehow seems larger here, more crushing in its enormity. In the distance, buildings stand up out of the ground, debris of buildings whose original function must be surmised. Mountains frame the horizon, their summits jagged against the clouds. Everything about this world says abandonment, a world in which human existence has been gone so long that nature has started the slow process of reclaiming it. At the center of it all, expanding ever larger with every step that Agro takes, is the shrine of worship. It looms over the land, a testament to the power of architectural vision and religious zeal. Its walls ascend in tiers, each rising back from the last, forming a building that appears to ascend to the heavens. At its height, openings admit light, though from this distance the inside is still hidden. As Agro and Wander draw close to the shrine, the solitude of this location is even more evident. No signs of life exist except the grass under Agro's hooves and the occasional bird frightened into flight. No human sounds, no fire smoke, no worn paths from frequent travel. The forbidden lands are true to their name, suspended between past and present, alive but somehow frozen in time. The way into the shrine is huge, a door that must have been made for giants or gods. It lies open as if patiently waiting, as if it has waited forever for someone like Wander to come along. As they step across this boundary, the nature of the light shifts. Outside, the weather is gray and cloudy. Inside, the light comes from above, from those openings in the ceiling that cast pillars of light in the dark. The beauty of it is stunning, and yet, It is also disturbing, as though the air inside the shrine is somehow other than the air outside. Wonder gets down slowly, moving cautiously as he comes near the bundle on Agro's back. With awe verging on adoration, he picks up the covered figure and bears it further into the shrine. His destination is certain, the altar in the center of the central hall. This altar is plain, a raised stone platform allowing room for the body of one to rest in state. Wonder sets his burden there with boundless care, then steps aside. With slightly trembling hands, either through tiredness, tears, or both, Wonder draws away the shroud. Housed under the white cloth is a young woman. She is called Mano, and she is as lovely as sleeping princesses of ancient tales. Her complexion is deathly pale, almost radiant in the filtered light. She is clad in a plain white gown that hints at ceremony or ritual. Her dark hair frames a face that would be serene if not for the absolute stillness of death. For Mano is dead, not sleeping, not in a coma, but truly and completely dead. How she died, why she died, the nature of her relationship with Wonder, all of this remains unspoken. The game gives us no solutions, no prologue to tell us why these two have come to this point. What we get in Wonder's expression as he gazes down at her says everything about motivation. Here is love, desperate and ferocious. Here is sorrow, raw and painful. Here is resolve that teeters on insanity. Wonder goes for the sword at his hip. It is an ancient weapon, its style indicating a civilization that had long since crumbled into dust. It is a straight and plain blade, yet even in its scabbard there is an air of power about it. This is the sword of ages past, and Wonder took it. It was taken by theft. This sword is the only one that can do what Wonder wishes to accomplish. As Wonder sketches the ancient blade, the mood inside the shrine shifts. Shadows darken, retreating from light as if they had form and intention. Then out of those shadows come things. They are human in shape, but made of nothing but darkness, wraiths that move with a creepy fluidity. They emerge from the floor itself, several figures encircling Wonder loosely in a circle, their purpose obviously malicious. Wonder's reply is swift and automatic. He holds up the ancient sword and light bursts from the blade, not the golden light of the sun, but something darker, more primal. The shadow monsters retreat, their forms undulating like smoke in a gust. Wonder sweeps the sword in a curve, and where the light falls, the shadows break apart, unable to hold their form while confronted by the sword's might. The beasts are vanished in an instant, leaving Wonder standing alone in the temple with Mano's corpse and Agro, who has stuck close to the door, anxious but true. But Wonder is never alone, not really, because the banishment of the shadow creatures has drawn the notice of something that lurks within this space, something that waited for one very much like Wonder to come along. A voice is heard. It is everywhere and nowhere, resonating across the enormous expanse of the shrine with a singularity and multiplicity of quality. This is Dormeen's voice, and it is the voice of many voices speaking as one. There is a masculine tone to the words, deep and resonant, but beneath it is something else, a feminine tone that harmonizes with the masculine in a manner that suggests unity of opposites, a duality drawn together into something that is both and neither. Dormeen's opening words are neither welcoming nor unfriendly, just watching. A visitor. Long we have been waiting for thee. There is real surprise in those words. That a human being is present in this realm is not expected, but somehow waited for. The paradox is the first indication that Dormeen is not a straightforward being, not to be simply aligned on lines of good or bad. Wonder's reaction demonstrates no fear. Maybe he has outgrown fear, his desperation fueling past such qualms as acid incinerates fabric. He addresses the voice, Dormeen, though he does not behold the being he speaks to. What he demands is plain, without forward or bargaining. Restore Mano to life. The demand is not unexpected to Dormeen. Death and its undoing are in this being's purview, though why or how is still in mystery. What appears to catch Dormeen's eye is the ancient sword Wander is carrying. That sword, through its power, it may be. There is something in these words. Hunger, maybe, or recognition. This sword has a history with Dormeen, though the nature of that history will not be made clear until far later. Dormeen is willing to allow Wander his request, but not without conditions. The entity details what needs to be done. The 16 idols along the walls of this central hall need to be destroyed. However, these idols cannot be broken by ordinary means. Each idol is linked with one of the Colossi who reside in the Forbidden Lands. To destroy an idol, the associated Colossus needs to be killed first. Only the ancient sword can do this deed, for only this sword can shatter the magical defenses that render the Colossi almost invulnerable. The bargain is set forth in plain terms. Kill the 16 Colossi. Defeat the 16 idols. For this, Dormeen will revive Mano. But Dormine includes an admonition, spoken in terms that indicate this is no formality. But listen to this. The cost that you pay is likely to be high. Wander's answer is immediate. He says yes. Perhaps he does not really know what he is doing. Perhaps he knows perfectly well and just does not care. Love has brought him to this point, and love will compel him to do whatever Dormine bids. The cost is irrelevant. All that matters is the outcome. With the alliance secured, Dormine provides assistance for locating the initial Colossus. Wander needs to employ the Sword of Old as a beacon. In bright locales, when the blade is held aloft, rays of light will emanate from it. These rays will align when directed toward the next Colossus, providing a form of compass applicable only for this particular task. See where it leads, Dormine tells her, and you will discover what you are looking for. Wander takes the horse back to Agro. The horse is tranquil now, the shadow beast vanished, and she noses her master as he returns. There is a flash of understanding between them, man and animal, both about to step into a journey whose end neither can anticipate. Wander ascends, then leads Agro out of the shrine into the open air of the Forbidden Lands. He holds the ancient sword aloft into the gray sky. Light lances from the blade in many directions, thin beams of brilliance slicing through the murk. Wander turns slowly, and with his turn the beams start to coalesce. When he is facing south-southwest, they form a shaft of light, a single column that indicates the direction. The first Colossus lies in wait in that direction, in its den someplace in the grasslands beyond. Wander's journey has started. 16 guardians between him and his destiny. 16 pieces of a torn power to be unleashed. And in the temple behind him, Mono sleeps her death sleep, expecting a resurrection that will cost more than Wander can even conceive. The pact with Dormine, getting to know the imprisoned god before we trace Wander into his initial combat. We need to know more about what Dormine is, because this creature is at the center of all that occurs in the Forbidden Lands. Dormine cannot be easily classified, being between demon and god, neither entirely evil nor entirely good. The name itself provides insight. Dormine spelled in reverse is Nimrod, a reference that would be weighty. In biblical lore, Nimrod was a powerful hunter and king. He's credited with constructing the Tower of Babel, that ambitious edifice intended to touch heaven itself. Nimrod was famous for his power and pride, for seeking to overcome the lines drawn between man and God. In some traditions, after Nimrod's death, his body was cut into pieces and scattered, much as Dormine's essence has been fragmented and dispersed throughout the Forbidden Lands. But Dormine is not simply evil, despite what Lord Eamon and his people believe. The entity's actions throughout the game suggest something more complex. When Wander first enters the shrine, Dormine does not attack. When Wander states his request, Dormine does not mock or refuse. Instead, the entity considers, evaluates, and ultimately agrees. There is a sense of rules being followed, of contracts that must be honored once entered into. The duality of Dormine is expressed most clearly in the voice, or rather, voices. Two tones interweave when Dormine speaks, a masculine voice and a feminine voice, harmonizing together. This is not simply aesthetics, but essential to comprehending what Dormine is. The entity contains both sides, male and female, light and darkness, creation and destruction. Dormine is an entirety made up of opposites contained within balance, or at least, that is what Dormine was before sealing. The shattering that disintegrated Dormine into 16 fragments did more than just lock the entity away. It basically ruined the essence of what Dormine is. A creature of such duality, such neatly balanced opposal, can't properly work when it's split apart. The 16 shards all have a portion of Dormine's essence in them, but none of them have the entirety. They are incomplete, unable to perform at full capability, yet unable to die completely off as well. The colossi are prisons for these pieces, but more than that. Each colossus is specially built, its shape and functions suited to the piece of Dormine it carries. They are not containers so much as active warders, their existence devoted to keeping those pieces locked away. So long as the colossi stand, Dormine is trapped. The idols in the shrine of worship serve as a secondary containment level. Each idol is mystically linked to its respective colossus, creating a system of magical reinforcement. The idols serve as the material form of the seal, tangible representations of the energy that binds Dormine. When a colossus is killed, its idol will shatter and a piece of Dormine is freed from that section of the seal. But where does the released fragment go? Not to freedom, not directly. Rather, each fragment is pulled into Wanda himself. This is the concealed system of the curse, the heavy toll Dormine foretold. With every colossus Wanda kills, he takes in more of Dormine's being. Gradually, step by step, Wanda is transformed into a vessel for the very being he is assisting in liberating. The transformation is seen in Wanda's altering appearance throughout the game. As the first few battles are fought, the changes are minimal. His skin becomes slightly whiter, shadows tend to cling to him more easily. By halfway through the quest, the change is more dramatic. His skin becomes almost translucent, his hair turns darker from reddish-brown to black, and dark veins form on his hands and face. In the advanced stages, small horns start sprouting from his forehead, and his eyes become cloudy, losing their natural color. These are not just cosmetic developments. Wanda is literally becoming something other than human, infected by the essence of a being whose nature is fundamentally different from mortal existence. Yet the transformation is not instantaneous or overwhelming. Part of Dorman remains fragmented, even as the pieces gather in Wanda, unable to act with full consciousness until all 16 fragments are reunited. Dorman's promises are another aspect of the entity's complex nature. When Dorman consents to revive Mono, there is nothing said that indicates he is being dishonest. The being says what it means. The revival will occur. But what Dorman does not clarify, what Wanda fails to ask or perhaps fails to want to know, is how exactly the revival will take place. The solution, as far as the game indicates, is in that duality we first discussed. As Dorman is divided between male and female elements, the process of resurrection seems to divide between two recipients. As Wanda murders Colossi and takes in the masculine element of Dorman, the female element is starting to flow into Mono. This would be proven by some scenes after Colossus fights, where Mono's color does slightly improve, her face becoming less of a corpse. She is being filled with life energy slowly. Dorman's life energy or something related to it. This is what forms what might be construed as a monstrous symmetry. Wanda is a vessel for the male darkness of Dorman, and Mono is a vessel for the female light. They are being set up to be twin receptacles for an reunified entity, living jails that would enable Dorman to operate once more while nominally being sealed within human vessels. If this was Dorman's intent all along, or if this is an emergent effect of the resurrecting process, the game does not specify. Dorman's intentions throughout this entire process are unclear. Is the creature evil, employing Wanda's love as a means of escape? Or is Dorman desperate, willing to do whatever will grant him liberty from an imprisonment that has spanned centuries? Maybe it is both. Perhaps Dorman, like the entity's dual nature, contains both selfishness and a genuine desire to help. Both manipulation and honest dealing. What becomes clear as the game progresses is that Dorman is not lying about the price. The warning given at the beginning was genuine. Wanda will pay heavily for Mono's resurrection. He will pay with his humanity, with his body, ultimately with his life as he knows it. And at the end, when Lord Aemon arrives to reseal Dorman, it becomes apparent that the entire civilization that once inhabited these lands paid a price as well. The price of creating this seal in the first place, and the eternal vigilance required to maintain it. The 16 idols around the shrine of worship stand as monuments to this price. Every one of them represents not only a piece of Dorman, but the price paid to house that piece. The Colossus, the idol, the magical bond between them. All of it took vast power and knowledge to do. The civilization that achieved it has vanished, leaving behind only ruins and memories. But their product lives on in these stone prisons of magic. And Wanda, possessed by love and desperation, is now reversing that effort. With every Colossus he destroys, with every idol that is reduced to dust, the seal becomes weakened. The shards accumulate in his body, patiently reassembling themselves, patiently building toward completeness. Dorman has discovered the perfect instrument in Wanda. An individual so desperate to disregard warnings, so competent to wield the old sword, and so in love to persevere even as the price becomes more evident. The old sword itself is another clue to the nature of Dorman. This sword was employed in the initial sealing, a sword created expressly to balance out the power of Dorman. It can damage the Colossi because it was created to do just that, enchanted, specifically designed to break through their defenses. But the sword is also imbued with Dorman in ways that imply it was perhaps originally a part of the entity, a shard removed and turned into a weapon. When Wanda takes up the sword and light shines from it, is that light a mere property of the blade? Or is it Dorman's own being, reacting to closeness to the fragments imprisoned in the Colossi? The sword pushes back shadow creatures in the shrine, repels expressions of darkness, but those shadows are also a part of Dorman. The weapon is created not only to kill but to divide, to break apart, to imprison. It is the physical form of the spell that imprisoned Dorman in the first place. All of these elements / 2013 the duality, the fragmentation, the careful balance between imprisonment and freedom, between separate and whole / 2013 create a picture of Dorman as a tragic figure as much as a threatening one. This is a being whose very nature requires completeness, but who has been forcibly sundered. The pain that exists in such a condition is hard for beings such as ourselves, who are otherwise individual and singular consciousnesses. But Dorman persists, steadfast throughout the centuries, waiting for someone like Wanda to show up. When such an individual finally arrives, Dorman does not unleash wrath or insist upon instant compliance. Rather, the being negotiates, adheres to terms of the trade, and threatens repercussions. This is not the action of a single-mindedly evil demon. This is something more, something which knows both debt and honor, power and bounds. As Wanda rides out into the Forbidden Lands, following the glow of the old sword to his first fight, Dorman stands in the shrine. The thing pauses as it has paused for years beyond count, cold as rock, hopeful in ways that creatures like Dorman can be hopeful. The seal is faltering, freedom nears, and if freedom is gained at the expense of one young man's soul and one young woman's innocent unawareness of what has been done on her behalf, well, Dorman did caution about the cost after all. The first 4 colossi waking the guardians. Riding south in the wake of the ancient sword's light, Wanda and Agro traverse grasslands that curve in waves halted by time. The terrain is tranquilly deceiving here, grass rippling in the wind that is odorless of habitation, odorless of the coming conflict. In the distance, structures of stone breach the ground, their function lost to time, their creators lost to time. It is lovely how deserted sites are lovely, with a tinge of sadness and the heaviness of centuries. The light from Wanda's sword beams on a particular spot, leading him to a building that seems more an arena than a habitation. The walls are made of stone in a coarse circle with cardinal point openings to permit entrance. As Wanda and Agro draw near, there's an instant of quiet, of expectation. The air itself hangs back as if the Forbidden Lands are not breathing. And then, from outside one of the walls, there is movement. The ground shakes at every step. A shadow crosses the entrance, impossibly large, impossibly tall. And then Valuz, though Wanda never hears this name since the Colossi do not have names in the game proper, comes into sight. Valuz is a humanoid Colossus, the first and in some ways the most basic of the Guardians. It is about 60 feet tall, and it more closely resembles a minotaur than a human being, although its lines are blunt and simplified, as if a sculptor had worked with the crudest tools. Dark fur covers its body, matted and very old, with moss sprouting in clumps on its shoulders and back. Stone plating resembling armor guards its essential areas, the rock appearing to have erupted directly from its flesh, or possibly its flesh has enveloped the rock. The difference cannot be ascertained. Worn on Valuz's right hand is a weapon, a colossal stone club that it trails behind as it moves, gouging deep grooves in the ground. The eyes of the Colossus are blue, a pale, almost delicate blue that appears to be out of character with its massive, dominating presence. They stare at Wanda with an unreadable expression. Is it curiosity, identification, or merely the reflex of a guardian to intruder? For an instant, Wanda and Valuz simply look at one another across the space of the arena. Man and Colossus, small and gigantic, human and something greater than human. Next, Valuz lifts its club and brings it down towards Wanda's position. The fight that ensues sets the tone for everything that follows. Wanda needs to figure out how she's going to get to Valuz's weak spots first, since the Colossus is too big to just run up and stab. He finds that Valuz has platforms on its body, stone ledges and clumps of fur that can be used as handholds. By grasping the fur of Valuz's leg and holding out against the Colossus's thrashing tries to dislodge him, Wanda is able to move upward. It should be noted that although fans have referred to this initial guardian as Valuz, along with nicknames for every other Colossus, these are not official titles. Within the game itself, they have only numerical designation / 2013 the first Colossus, the second Colossus, etc. The names that are popularly used in the community came from unofficial sources, but have become the standard method of referring to them anyway. For purposes of clarity, we will use these well-known names while admitting their unofficial status. Climbing up the body of Valuz is dangerous. The Colossus is not inactive in this assault. It quakes hard, attempting to shake its small attacker loose. It strikes its own leg with its club, willing to harm itself in order to eliminate the danger. Wanda must coordinate his movements well, climbing when Valuz remains stationary, holding on hard when the shaking starts. His endurance is fleeting. He cannot cling indefinitely. Working with this resource becomes important to survival. As Wanda moves to the lower back of Valuz, he discovers the first platform, a fairly solid spot on which to rest and regain his stamina. The climb from there goes upwards over additional fur and stone, until Wanda has climbed to the head of the Colossus. There, on top of this walkabout mountain, Wanda discovers what he has been searching for / 2013 a sigil, a shimmering pattern of light that throbs with magical power. This is Valus's vulnerable spot, where Dorman's shard of essence is most at risk. Wanda lifts the ancient sword and drives it into the sigil. The result is quick and theatric. Black blood bursts from the wound, spouting into the air like oil from a breached reservoir. Valus roars, a cry of agony and bewilderment, and its actions become more desperate. But Wanda persists, drawing the sword out and striking repeatedly, each blow planting deeper into the magical core that powers this sentinel. 3 blows are enough. On the 3rd blow of the ancient sword, something essential shatters within Valus. The giant stumbles, its actions becoming spasmodic. Wanda bounces off its head, falling tough on the stone floor of the arena below, rolling to cushion the fall. Behind him, Valus staggers like a tree in a gale, then stumbles forward, falling hard onto the floor, with force that makes the whole building tremble. For an instant there is dust and silence. Then, out of the wound Wanda made, something starts to protrude. Black tendrils, shadow-made semi-solid, squirm out of Valus's head. They move purposefully, searching, seeking, and they find what they look for in Wanda. The young man attempts to flee, but the tendrils are quicker. They impale him from a variety of angles, thrusting through his body like shafts of blackness. Wanda's scream is cut short as awareness is lost by him. He stumbles, and in stumbling the world changes. When he opens his eyes again, he is no longer on the grounds of the arena that Valus collapsed on. He finds himself again in the shrine of worship, on the stone ground by the altar where Mono lies. Agro stands by his side, somehow having made it back to the shrine also, waiting patiently as if expecting her master to awaken. Wanda also awakens, dazed but unharmed. The cuts the tendrils left her do not leave any scars on his body, no blood, no cuts. But something is different. The first piece of Dorman now sits inside him, initiating the gradual process of change. And on the shrine wall, the first idol has broken, its stone fragments lying on the floor. Dorman's voice booms from above, 1 down. 15 more to go. Satisfaction in those words, anticipation. The process has started. Wanda doesn't sleep long. He raises the old sword once more, looking for the light that will lead him to the second Colossus. The light this time points north towards the cliffs and stone country. Wanda and Agro ride out together, following the magic compass to their next fight. Quadratus, the second Colossus, resides in an environment vastly different than Valus's arena. A huge subterranean cave lies before them, reachable through a tight gorge in the cliffs. As Wanda and Agro make their way along this gorge, walls of rock rise on both sides, leading to a passage that opens out into a huge open-air dome. Here, the floor is gleaming stone, worn smooth by water and ages, and along the edges ancient buildings hint that this site had some ceremonial use in the past. Quadratus is quadrupedal, looking like some huge bull constructed of rock and shadow. It is bigger than Valus, about 90 feet in length, its body hugging the ground like a predator springing into action. 4 strong legs hold it upright, each of them terminating in hooves that clash against the stone floor when it moves. Its hide consists of dark fur with rocky armor plating in between, and on its head are 2 blunt horns that protrude forward menacingly. While Valus appeared virtually passive until attacked, Quadratus is aggressive from the moment Wanda enters its territory. The instant Wanda steps into its territory, the Colossus charges, moving at surprising speed for a creature so large. Wanda dodges, rolling out of the way at the last instant as tons of living rock barrel by. Quadratus pivots with astonishing quickness and charges again, leaving Wanda no time to think. The key to scaling Quadratus is to wait for the Colossus to present its weak underside. Wanda needs to lure it into a charge, then roll beneath its body as it comes overhead. Hanging onto the fur on Quadratus' underside, Wanda starts another treacherous ascent, this time from the belly up toward the legs, and from the legs to the platforms along the back of the Colossus. The fight against Quadratus is stronger than the battle against Valus. This giant is wiser, more aggressive, more adept at using the terrain to its advantage. It bashes its body against walls, attempting to squash Wanda. It lashes out wildly, making it almost impossible to hold on, but Wanda holds on, climbing over and around the hurdles, fueled by visions of Mono and the hope of her return to life. On the back of Quadratus, Wanda discovers several sigils, needing many stabbing sessions to completely vanquish the Colossus. Each stab sends Quadratus more desperate, its attacks more panicked. At last, with the final sigil destroyed, the second guardian collapses, its mass crashing onto the stone floor with a sound like a building's collapse. Once more the black tendrils slide forth. Once more they stab Wanda and appropriate his consciousness. Once again he wakes up in the shrine to discover yet another idol broken. The alterations to his body are now becoming more apparent. His complexion has dulled somewhat, and there are light dark markings that are appearing on his hands. The third Colossus can be reached by a journey northeast, where a lake spreads under massive cliffs. Towards the northern side of this lake, a huge ring-shaped platform protrudes from the surface, held aloft on pillars which plunge into depths out of sight. This is Gaius's territory. Gaius stands like Valus but is even higher, about 80 feet tall, and is one of the tallest human-like colossi. Its form recalls a knight in battle armor, with thick stone plate armor covering most of its surface. In contrast to Valus' club, Gaius uses an enormous stone sword, which is ornate in proportion to its size, indicating that this colossus was made with greater attention, more concern for martial beauty. Gaius' fight offers a new twist of strategy. The colossus attacks with his sword actively, swiping the blade in powerful overhead blows. Wanda has to utilize the terrain ring barriers on the platform in order to defend himself and strategize how he will attack. The trick to getting to Gaius is to get it to attack these barriers. When Gaius strikes its sword through a barrier, the sword gets lodged for a short time, forming a bridge. Wanda is able to run across to get to the arm of the Colossus. From there is the climb up to the shoulder and from the shoulder to the platforms on the head and back of Gaius. The Colossus senses Wanda's presence and tries to swat at the small figure crawling on its form with its free arm. Wanda has to avoid these swipes while holding on, a reflex and timing test that challenges his abilities to their fullest. Gaius' sigils are found on its back and head, so Wanda has to take a route around these locations as the Colossus roams wildly. The final blow falls while Gaius is already faltering, its movements slow, its huge body staggering precariously. When it crashes into the lake with an enormous splash, sending waves rolling over the platform and almost sweeping Wanda into the water. The third absorption of the essence of Dorman results in more tangible effects. Wanda's hair is darker now, and the veins on his face are growing more apparent. He coughs when he wakes up in the shrine, a wet, unsound sound. But nonetheless he stands. Nonetheless he grasps for the ancient sword. Mono rests upon the altar, and nothing else is important. The fourth Colossus resides in the eastern part of the Forbidden Lands, in a place of rolling hills and old ruins. The scenery here is especially lovely, with wildflowers scattered across the grass and the ruins hinting at buildings of grace and beauty. It does not seem a likely sight for a guardian of awful power, but things in the Forbidden Lands tend to look otherwise than they are. Phaedra is the initial Colossus Wanda meets who is not an instant threat. This guardian is horse-like in shape, though to refer to it as such does it a disservice. It is huge, some 40 feet in length, its body made of earth and stone topped with clumps of grass and moss. In place of a typical horse's mane, Phaedra has patterns of rock that flow down its neck like frozen waterfalls. Its eyes are the gentle blue typical of most colossi when left in peace, and it runs with the wild beauty of a mustang, unbridled and unrestricted. When Wanda first sees Phaedra, the colossus is grazing calmly in its own land, wandering through the ruins as if the landscape itself. It has no intention of attacking, no sign that it sees Wanda as a threat. This adds a moral element to the encounter lacking in the earlier fights. Valus, Quadratus and Gaius all attacked on sight. Phaedra just lingers, calm and lovely, a being that appears to personify the serenity of these forbidden lands. But Wanda's mission is defined. This colossus has to die. In order to access Phaedra's vulnerabilities, Wanda has to first get it to move. Launching arrows at the colossus or attacking aggressively makes Phaedra run away, running with the speed and force its equine origins imply. Aggro becomes imperative here. Wanda has to pursue the colossus on horseback, chasing after it across the plains and attempting to get into position to jump from aggro onto Phaedra's back. The pursuit is thrilling and heartbreaking. Phaedra charges not to fight, but to flee, its action that of a beast that merely desires to be left alone. But Wanda will not relent, pushing aggro more, closing the gap. And when at last he succeeds in jumping from aggro to Phaedra, clinging to the rocky mane, the colossus's serene blue eyes burn orange, the hue of distress, of fright, of rage. Riding Phaedra as the colossus moves is one of the most daunting feats Wanda has ever undertaken. The guardian gallops at top speed, bucking and rearing in an attempt to shake off its attacker. The earth around them is a blur as Wanda drags himself along Phaedra's back toward the sigils near its hind legs and tail. With every thrust of the sword, Phaedra screams, anguished cries that ring across the hills. The movements of the Colossus grow more frantic, more desperate. It is not attempting to slay Wanda so much as shed him, to toss him aside and run to safety. But there is no safety, not from this specific danger. Wanda clings, stabs, and finally, inexorably, Phaedra's strength gives out. The fourth Colossus falls in mid-stride, its motion carrying it forward even as its legs go out from under it. It glides over the grass before stopping, still and quiet, just another pile of earth and rock among the wreckage. The black tendrils come out, pierce Wanda and take away his consciousness again. When Wanda comes to a second time, the alterations in his looks are inescapable. His complexion is pale, chalky. His hair is completely black now, no hint of its original reddish-brown color remaining. The veins on his face become an intricate design of dark lines that give him an ill, corrupted look. He stands up more slowly than before, his movements laborious, implying exhaustion that is more than physical. For idols shattered, for giants brought low. And if Wanda glances in Mono's direction, he may notice something, a faint return of color to her cheeks, an indication that death's hold upon her is weakening. It is an indication that Dorman's vow is being fulfilled, that the resurrection is really happening. This should be reassuring confirmation that the cost is worth it. But were Wanda to see himself, see the reflection of his altered face in the waters of the shrine's pool, would he still believe so? Would he perceive the change for what it is, not corruption of flesh but substitution of the self? Would he realize that with every Colossus defeated, more of Wanda is lost and more of Dorman seeds itself in his body? Maybe he wouldn't mind. Love, after all, requires sacrifice. The only real question is how much sacrifice is too much sacrifice, and when the price becomes too exorbitant to pay. Wanda is not yet there. 4 down, 12 to go. And the subsequent Colossi in the Forbidden Lands are stranger, more horrible, and more formidable than anything he has experienced before. Colossi 5 through 8 darker in their ways. The fifth Colossus heralds a radical change in the nature of Wanda's quest. Until now, all of the Guardians have been earthly, tied to the ground in form and purpose. But the Forbidden Lands cover a great distance not only over the earth but up into the air and down into the water as well. The fifth Colossus represents this broadening of scope, adding a whole new level to the fights Wanda has to endure. Looking westward for the light of the ancient sword, Wanda and Agro ride through part of the Forbidden Lands that they have not yet ventured. The ground here gives way from grasslands to swampy ground, with patches of standing water and ground where the footing is uncertain. Finally, they come to a great lake, its water dark and quiet, reflecting the gray sky above. In the middle of the lake stands a building, platforms and pillars that hint at some lost function, now worn by time and reclaimed by nature. It is here, out in the open air above this lake, that Wanda comes face to face with Avion. Avion is the first avian Colossus, a monster that looks rather like a giant bird or maybe a dragon, its body being a mix of organic material and architectural stone. Its wingspan is gigantic, easily over 200 feet from tip to tip. The wings themselves are miracles of impossible biology, provided with what seems to be stone feathers which find a way to generate the lift required to support such weight in the air. Avion's body is more streamlined than the earlier Colossus, designed for flight as opposed to walking, with a lengthy tail that acts as a rudder and 4 legs folded against its belly when it flies. When Wanda first encounters Avion, the Colossus is standing atop one of the pillars, its stance that of a bird of prey looking over its domain. Its eyes are the now familiar blue of a passive Colossus, and it does not appear hostile immediately. But as Wanda moves to cross the platforms and pillars to reach Avion's position, the Colossus notices. With a shriek that rings around the lake, Avion flares its wings and soars into the sky. What ensues is one of the most acrobatic fights in the entire game. Avion circles overhead, banking and flipping with elegance that would be impossible for something of such size. Wanda needs to get himself atop the highest platform, then just sit there and wait for Avion to come hurtling down at him. The Colossus strikes with its wings, attempting to knock Wanda off his perch, but these blows offer opportunities. As Avion's wing whisks by, Wanda can jump onto it, taking hold of the stone feathers and hanging on as the Colossus emerges from its dive and rises back into the air. Now the real fight starts. Wanda is high above the ground, hanging off Avion's wing as the giant tries to throw him off. The wind howls at him, trying to pull his grip away. The lake stretches out below him, its surface as hard as rock from this distance. All it would take is one misplaced step, 1 second of distraction, and Wanda will plummet to his death. But Wanda doesn't fall. With terrific resolve, he ascends from the wing to Avian's back, crossing the moving, tilting surface of the air giant's body. The sigils appear on Avian's wings and tail, and Wanda must take the hazardous trip out along those appendages as Avian banks and rolls, attempting to shake off its minute attacker. With each thrust of the ancient blade, Avian screams and bucks harder. The Colossus plunges towards the lake, jerking back at the end, attempting to use gravity to rip Wanda off. It shoots between pillars, seeking to scrape him off on the stone. The fight is a test of resolve, of stamina, of the power to keep one's head while facing certain doom. When Avian does die, it is not a crash but a planned drop gone awry. The wings of the Colossus lose their coordination, flailing wildly, unable to support lift. It heads down towards the lake, and Wanda has to time his jump off its body just right, ending up in shallow water along the shore instead of plummeting with the Guardian to the depths. Avian slams into the water with colossal impact, making a splash that temporarily hides the sky. When the water recedes, the Colossus stands half-submerged, its wings outstretched across the lake surface like some monumental sculpture in honor of its death. The dark whips creep out, reach Wanda by the lake margin, and drag him into unconsciousness again. The fifth one hits harder than the others. When Wanda comes to in the shrine, he is slower to stand, his breathing strained. His darkness has spread further, forming patterns on his skin that look like cracks in rock. His eyes, when he opens them, are starting to display the clouding that will ultimately deprive them of all color. The sixth Colossus is to the west, in a dense wood where green light filters through leaves to give it an underwater feel to the light. The landscape here is more organized than the earlier areas, with walls creating passageways and rooms that indicate that this used to be a dwelling or a place of ritual. There is a big chamber at the termination of these tunnels, and Barba lives inside it. Barba is a humanoid colossus just like Valos and Gaius, but unlike them in design and demeanor. It is about 70 feet tall, heavily covered with dark fur, bearing a wonderful beard that makes it look nearly sage-like. Its torso and legs are heavily armored with stone, and it has no weapon in its hands. Barba, however, uses its size and power, and on one strange ability which differentiates it from other guardians. It can produce and fire concussive bursts of energy from its hands. The fight with Barba occurs in that vast underground room, illuminated by windows in the ceiling that permit rays of light to illuminate the blackness. As Wanda enters, Barba stands in the middle of the room, and the Colossus instantly recognizes him as a threat. The energy blasts start virtually immediately, bursts of energy that crash against walls and floor with wrecking potential. Wanda has to take advantage of the structure of the chamber, seeking shelter behind pillars and wreckage, thinking ahead about how to approach. The secret of making it to Barba is knowing its attack pattern. The Colossus will try to shoot energy blasts at Wanda, but the shots have a window of vulnerability after they are fired. It is in these windows that Wanda needs to run towards Barba, climb its legs and start ascending. The Colossus knows this plan and will attempt to pull Wanda with its hands or shake furiously to remove him. Barba's sigils are on its back and head and demand long climbing through fur and across stone plating. The Colossus is among the more hostile guardians insofar as trying to expel Wanda from its body, both hands attempting to yank the small figure free. The fight is a desperate struggle of relentlessness versus resistance. Wanda's resolve up against Barba's compulsion to guard the fragment of dormant it carries. When Barba finally dies, it does so with a thunderous crash, falling backwards in the chamber with impact that tosses dust and debris from the ceiling. The black tendrils are more tardy to emerge in this instance, as though the piece of dormant within Barba is loath to leave its keeper. But out they come, and Wanda is drawn once again into darkness. The seventh Colossus lies under the surface, within a western lake in the Forbidden Lands. The lake is enormous, its waters dark and intimidating, and deep within them rides Hydrus. Hydrus is a serpent colossus, the first of the truly non-terrestrial Wanda has encountered. It looks like a giant sea serpent or eel, around 150 feet long, its body streamlined and muscular, designed for underwater motion. Unlike the land colossi, Hydrus is not covered in fur, but smooth armored plates that look like scales, painted with shades of blue and gray to enable it to camouflage among the water. Its most striking characteristic is the bioluminescent features along its body, electrically charged spines that radiate light, gorgeous and lethal. The fight with Hydrus is done entirely in and around the water. Wanda swims out into the lake, diving under the surface to hunt for the Colossus. Hydrus is not aggressive at first, swimming docilely through the depths, but when Wanda comes close, the Guardian senses the presence of the intruder. The Colossus comes into view, its colossal body breaching the water like a submarine breaking through the depths. Wanda needs to reach Hydra's weak spots, and the only way to do so is to latch onto his tail and ascend up his body towards his head while keeping pace with his compulsion to breathe. The Colossus will keep on diving, taking Wanda with him. Air pockets are located in underwater caverns, areas where Wanda can come up and breathe, but to get to them takes knowing how to time and where Hydrus is moving. The electrical spines pose a further threat. Coming into contact with them inflicts damage, so Wanda has to move warily along Hydra's body, looking for routes clear of the perilous structures. The Colossus is sensitive to these defenses, and will try to position itself so that Wanda can't avoid touching the spines if he wishes to keep climbing. Hydra's sigils are on its belly and head, and Wanda must navigate the entire length of this enormous creature while dealing with the triple threat of drowning, electrical shock, and the Colossus's efforts to shake him off. It is the most technically demanding battle so far, and demands mastery of all Wanda's abilities, as well as the capacity for strategic thought under intense pressure. When finally Hydrus kills, it sinks slowly into the lake's depths, Wanda swimming around the place where it disappeared. The black tendrils will have to chase him out into the water, where they will move in an unsettling tableau as they pass through the water like living darkness. The uptake occurs as Wanda swims to shore, and he is only able to reach land before he loses consciousness. The eighth Colossus brings another new environment and challenge. To the north in the Forbidden Lands, a network of caves cuts deep into a cliff face. The interior of this cave is vast, with vertical shafts and horizontal passages creating a three-dimensional maze lit by cracks in the rock that allow sunlight to filter in. This is the domain of Kuramori. Kuramori is a reptilian colossus, resembling a massive gecko or lizard. It is around 50 feet in length, with a ground-hugging body and 4 muscular legs that terminate in clawed feet that enable it to hold virtually any surface. Its most striking feature is its wall and ceiling climbing ability, traversing vertical and inverted surfaces with equal facility to other colossi traversing the ground. Kuramori's eyes are situated atop a head that can rotate independently of its body, enabling it to follow Wanda from nearly any direction. Kuramori, like Barba, has the skill to direct energy attacks, but its approach varies. The Colossus emits beams of electrical energy from its eyes, accurate and lethal, that can follow Wanda as he navigates the cave complex. Nature becomes both friend and foe. Columns and outcroppings give Wanda cover from the attacks of Kuramori, but restrict Wanda's movement and make it hard to keep up with the Colossus' position. The fight against Kuramori is a cat-and-mouse game in 3 dimensions. Wanda has to lure the Colossus into attacking, then take advantage of those moments of weakness and sneak up and shoot arrows at its feet. The only weaknesses that Kuramori has which can be attacked with traditional weapons. There are enough arrow shots that make Kuramori lose its hold and crash to the cave floor, and it provides an opening for Wanda to get to its underside and start the ascent to its back. Kuramori will not take this lying down. The Colossus will roll over on itself, crash into walls, and speed across surfaces in attempts to shake Wanda loose. Its sigils upon its back are guarded by armor plating that can be destroyed in a manner that requires it to be stabbed with the ancient sword, putting an additional step towards the process of killing this guardian. When Kuramori ultimately dies, it jumps from a high distance, having ascended to the uppermost points of the cave in its eagerness to get away. The crash resounds through the cavern, a note of finality that strikes something greater than the simple loss of another Colossus. 8 guardians have perished, 8 pieces of Dorman have been taken in, and Wanda, rising slowly in the shrine of worship, is less himself with every awakening. His flesh is now pale to the point of translucency, veins showing beneath the surface like dark rivers. His hair is all black and tiny protrusions are starting to sprout from his forehead, the initial signs of horns. He moves like a man who carries an enormous burden, his body showing the physical cost of harboring 8 pieces of an ancient, mighty being. Mono's color, though, still gets better. Her skin, previously corpse gray, now carries the slightest trace of healthy color. Her lips, previously blue with death, are slowly regaining color. If one were to listen closely, they might hear the faintest whisper of breath, though whether this is imagination or reality is difficult to say. 8 down, 8 to go. And in the Forbidden Lands distances, the last of the Colossi languish in their lairs, having no idea that their moment is at hand, that the centuries-long seal that has kept them at bay is slowly being taken apart by one frantic young man in love with a dead girl and willing to pay any cost to resurrect her. Colossi 9. By 12, the change gathers momentum. By mid-campaign, Wanda is no longer the youth who first entered the bridge into the Forbidden Lands. The transformations brought by having consumed 8 pieces of Dorman's essence are no longer subtle. When Wanda catches a glimpse of himself in the shrine's pool, he beholds a face that is his and not his. Paler, darker veined, with eyes that have lost most of their original color, the horns protruding from his brow can no longer be explained away as tricks of light or fancy. Small but indubitable physical signs of the change taking place within him. But even with these changes, or perhaps because of them, Wanda's resolve has not faltered. If anything, it has grown stronger, becoming desperate in its reach. He has traveled too far to turn back now, sacrificed too much to turn aside. Mono needs to be saved, nothing else will do. Not his looks, not his health, not the growing dire warnings in Dorman's voice when the entity speaks. Nothing. The ninth Colossus stands in wait in the northern deserts, an area of the forbidden lands that appears to be inimical to life itself. The landscape here is unforgiving, sand dunes rolling and falling like waves crystallized mid-swift. Ancient buildings scar the ground, half buried in dunes, remnants of civilization engulfed by the desert's tide. The temperature is stifling, causing the air to undulate and casting mirages that flit at the perimeter of one's sight. Within the middle of this desert is a building that looks like an arena, with high walls and a sandy floor. This is Besaran's territory. Besaran is a gigantic four-legged colossus, looking very much like a turtle or tortoise in outline form, but grown to monstrous size. It is about 100 feet long and 30 feet tall, its body shielded by thick armor plating that encases it like a shell. 4 short legs hold up this tremendous weight, and on top of the shell there are superstructures that look like defensive positions or maybe ceremonial finials. Unlike most earlier colossi, Besaran is hostile and aggressive from the start. As soon as Wanda steps into its domain, the Colossus starts attacking, firing its devastating energy blasts from atop structures on its back. These blasts are stronger than anything Wanda has been exposed to so far, and they produce explosions that make sand fly and leave blackened patches on the ground. Besaran even stomps its feet, generating shockwaves that can knock Wanda to the ground if he's not ready. The fight with Besaran adds a new level of environmental strategy. The battlefield is dotted with geysers, natural vents which burst spouts of steam and boiling water at intervals. These geysers are the secret to destroying Besaran. Wanda has to get the Colossus across these vents, then coordinate his actions so that when a geyser goes off, Besaran will be standing right over it. The energy of the geyser is enough to tip Besaran onto its side, revealing its underbelly, the one section of the Colossus which isn't covered in heavy armor. This opens up a temporary window for Wanda to run to the toppled Guardian, mount its vulnerable underside and find the sigils before Besaran stabilizes itself. The test is twofold. First, Besaran is intelligent enough to steer clear of the geysers once it realizes the danger they represent. Second, the geysers themselves are unreliable, erupting on schedules that are hard to predict. Wanda has to lure Besaran into place using himself as bait, keeping mobile enough to avoid the Colossus blows, while at the same time trying to foresee when and where the next eruption will take place. Every time Wanda strikes the vulnerable points on Besaran's back as it's turned over, the Colossus grows more paranoid and aggressive. Its energy blasts strike with increasing frequency, its movements wilder. The fight continues on, pushing Wanda's limits of patience and stamina. When the last sigil is shattered and Besaran at last collapses, the Colossus topples onto its back, waves its legs weakly before ceasing all movement. The ninth fragment's absorption is especially agonizing. As the black tendrils impale Wanda, he does not merely lose consciousness. He convulses, his body arching as the shard of Dorman pushes into him. The darkness spreading within him has built to critical mass, and every new addition to it makes the process harder, more changing. The 10th Colossus resides in the western deserts, in an area of stone and sand where giant dunes rise to the horizon. Finding this Colossus is difficult. The ancient sword's light shines downwards, indicating the Guardian is below ground. And so it is, as Wanda starts riding aggro over the dunes, the ground itself attacks. Dirge is a snake-like colossus similar to Hydrus, but rather than swimming in water, it swims in sand with the same smooth elegance. It is enormous, weighing around 120 feet, its body covered with armored segments that enable it to move through the desert like a fluid sea of sand. Dirge only appears every so often, its reptilian and alien-like head bobbing up out of the sand as its glowing, dimmed even during daylight hours, eye structures shine. The fight against Dirge is unlike any of the Colossus battles. Wanda is unable to get off aggro. To accomplish this in open desert would be to be engulfed by the Guardian as it comes up from below. Rather, the entire fight is on horseback, with Wanda firing his bow into Dirge's eyes when the Colossus comes up out of the water. Correct archery on horseback over uneven ground demands skill that Wanda has acquired through his past fights and his extended experience with aggro. With each successful shot that strikes the mark, Dirge rises all the more completely, dazed for a time. Wanda is able to dismount, dash to the surface part of the Colossus and cling to its armor. From there it's a fight against time. Dirge won't stay stationary long enough. It will sink back into the sand, and Wanda has to scramble up its body, making it to the sigils on its back before the Colossus is completely underwater. If Wanda remains on Dirge when it submerges, he has to hold his breath, hoping that the Colossus resurfaces before his oxygen supply is exhausted. The pursuit through the desert, the fluid movements of Dirge as he swims through the sand, the frantic ascents as the Colossus plunges and rises. All of these combine to form one of the most fluid and visually stunning fights in the game. When Dirge finally succumbs to death, it emerges once more and slowly disappears into the sand, leaving nothing but ripples to indicate where it went. The 11th Colossus is a comparative downscale from Dirge's epic scale. Trailing the light to a temple in the northern border, Wanda comes upon Colossus, and this guardian is petite at least in comparison to Colossus' size. Colossus is only about 20 feet long, approximating either a boar or a lion, with a stout body clad in black fur and very little armor plating. Its actions are fast and ferocious, missing the clumsy nature of bigger colossi. The temple Colossus resides within is filled with braziers, stone bowls that one can set on fire. These braziers become the deciding factor in the battle. Colossus is a coward around fire, or at least wary of it. If Wanda sets a brazier alight and leads the Colossus back with a torch from it, the Colossus will retreat, eyes shifting from blue to orange, revealing agitation but also fear. Strategically employing fire, Wanda can position Colossus to attack. But the Colossus is speedy and intelligent, with a capacity for rapid charges and unexpected changes of direction that make its behavior hard to anticipate. When Wanda does get onto Colossus's back, the little guardian flails with unnatural ferocity, requiring one to hold on tightly despite the briefer ranges. The fight against Colossus is distinguished by its tempo / 2013 quick, hectic, demanding swift reflexes instead of the sustained planning used when fighting larger colossi. It's also interesting as one of the only battles where the Colossus actually appears scared, as opposed to just defending itself. Colossus doesn't wish to fight, it wishes to hide, to flee, to avoid the flames and the small creature holding them. When Colossus dies, its sizelessness makes its fall even more tragic than those of giant guardians like Besarin or Dirge. There is something pathetic about seeing this animal, no bigger than an elephant, fall to the temple floor, its eyes dimming from orange to hollow gray. The 12th Colossus heralds another revolution in combat dynamics. In the deep south, beyond canyons and over a vast lake, there is what looks like an island with rock buildings hinting at ceremonial use. This is not really land, but the posterior of Pelagia, a colossus so big that grass covers its body and lesser beasts make dens in the gaps of its armor. Pelagia is four-legged and marine, roughly 150 feet long. It looks like a merger of different sea creatures, having both crocodilian reptiles and armored fishes. Its most unique aspects are the two horns on its head that are able to shoot potent beams of electrical energy, the same attack used by a number of previous colossi, but on a much more powerful and deadly scale. The fight against Pelagia is fought both on and near the Colossus' enormous body. Wander first needs to make his way onto platforms that emerge from the sea close to where Pelagia breaks the surface. The Colossus employs its energy beams to attempt to repel Wander's advance, and an obfuscation of careful timing and rapid movement between cover is required. When Wander can reach a sufficiently high platform, he is able to jump onto Pelagia's back as the Colossus walks close by. But it does not end there. Pelagia's weak spots are found on its belly, which means Wander has to move around the Colossus body to discover methods of flipping or getting underneath it. The fight consists of forcing Pelagia to open its mouth, which is an opening to its interior, and then moving through tunnels in the Colossus to access the sigils along the vulnerable belly. The ride into Pelagia's interior is cramped and unnerving, a reminder that these colossi are not mere constructs, but living things with internal anatomy, with something like biology, if not actually alive in any conventional sense. When Wander finally destroys the sigils required and Pelagia starts dying, the Colossus' massive form convulses, then gradually slides beneath the lake, sending waves that roll over adjacent shores. The consumption of the 12th piece leads Wander to the threshold of horror. Upon waking in the shrine this time, he doesn't get up right away. He stays on the cold stone floor, his body shuddering, dark veins spreading across his skin like cracks on white porcelain. His horns are more notable now, small but undeniable protrusions from the forehead. When he finally stands, he moves like an old man or a man who carries a heavy burden. But it is during this time, when the 12th Colossus collapses, that the game inserts a new twist to the narrative. Meanwhile, as Wander staggers to his feet, as Dorman's voice booms from above in approval of the work in progress, something else happens outside the shrine, outside the forbidden grounds in the world Wander departed. A patrol of horsemen halt at the edge of a clearing. They are fighters, their gear and attire indicating military intent. Riding at their forefront is a man with a peculiar mask on his face, the design of which implies authority and mysticism in a union. This is Lord Eamon, and his arrival here today indicates that Wander's deeds have not escaped notice. The stealing of the old sword, the foray into the forbidden territory, these were not clandestine deeds. These were transgressions that could not be overlooked. Lord Eamon lifts his head, gazing out into the distance towards the forbidden lands. His voice, when he speaks, is heavy with knowledge and fear. We cannot allow him to cast the forbidden spell, we have to stop him at any cost. The chase is on. Time, which appeared infinite in the timeless landscape of the forbidden lands, now becomes valuable and finite. Wander has 4 colossi remaining to kill. Eamon and his men are riding hard to arrive at the shrine of worship. It's become a race, although Wander is not aware yet that he is racing against anyone other than his own failing body. 4 remained, only 4 more guardians standing between Wander and his destination. Only 4 more pieces of Dorman to absorb. Only 4 more steps along a road that is turning him into something monstrous in search of something beautiful. And now, enemies are coming with the possibility that all his sacrifice, all his suffering, would be for nothing. In the shrine, Mono lies upon the altar, her color bettered, her breathing shallow but steady. She lives, or nearly so, in a state of suspended animation between death and resurrection. And Wander, with eyes that have become more Dorman's than his own, recognizing what he must do, knows he has no time to linger. The glow of the ancient sword illuminates the direction of the 13th Colossus, and there is no time left for rest or contemplation. The change is all but finished, the cost is all but paid, and the last colossi bide their time in their far-off lairs, unguessing that the final curtain of this tragedy is about to fall. Colossi 13 to 16, the last defenders. The 13th Colossus resides in the southern wastelands, in a land so remote and desolate that even the thin life of the forbidden lands appears to shun it. It takes a long journey to find this guardian, one that takes Wander and aggro through large distances of sand on which the heat generates heat distortions that distort vision and blur the horizon so that distance is lost. Far away in the distance, the light of the ancient sword is eventually focused on a structure within the desert, large rock formations that are like giant fingers pointing into the air. And there, flying between the pillars of stone, is Phalanx. Phalanx is the biggest flying colossus, and possibly one of the 3 or 4 biggest colossi in general. It has the look of a huge snake that has somehow learned to fly, its body composed of segments like an earthworm's, each covered in chitinous plating armor. Its length is over 200 feet, and it swims through the air with an undulating motion that appears to be against physics, propelled by big, sack-like protrusions along its body that swell and deflate in rhythm. What is so unusual about Phalanx among the colossi is its complete inability to attack. From the very beginning, this guardian never tries to fight. It just flies, coasting between the rock outcroppings in what seems to be an endless cycle, neither hunting nor concealing itself, simply being. Its eyes are blue, the color of passivity, and stay blue during the fight, never shifting to orange hostility or fear. To access Phalanx, Wander has to ride aggro over the desert dunes in pursuit of the flying colossus as it travels between the rock pillars. The pursuit is protracted, as Wander is forced to keep up with a never-ending creature that flies forever. When aggro is close enough at last, Wander is forced to time a leap, springing from his steed to snag one of the sacks along Phalanx's form, holding fast even as the colossus maintains its flight path. Climbing Phalanx as it flies is breathtaking and terrifying. The desert stretches beneath, golden sand reaching to all horizons. The wind rages at Wander, and the ever-changing movement of the serpent's body presents a challenge in finding stable positions.